not necessarily tribal or regional.
All right, thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak on Trust TV, reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. We'll take a look at the top stories, or the stories on the front pages of our newspapers this morning. And we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, where you have the lead story there that has a kicker: pay rise. FG yet to pay 79.3 billion naira peculiar allowance 7 months after. And you have the riders that says Jusun ultimatum ends tomorrow. NLC alleges lack of capacity to manage wages. Supplementary budget stalls payment in agencies. And then Finance Ministry mum. All the details on page 4. You have above the lead story as well. Power Minister yet to give policy directive after 2 months in office on page 20. Nigeria, Chinese firms sign 365 billion naira contract to upgrade distribution lines on page 21. Tinubu, northern governors, others mourn as Ohinoi of Ebira land dies at 94 on page 4. Now you have the pictorial there showing you pictures where some persons were said to have died after they capsized in a river somewhere in Taraba State. It says many fear dead as boat with over 100 passengers capsizes in Taraba. Beside that, bandit kill only teacher in Kaduna community. And that's on page 6. FG plans reabsorption of retired military officers on page 14. UN raises alarm as food stores ransacked in Gaza on page 14. These are the main stories on the Daily Trust newspaper.
Concerns over economy rise. CBN goes after airing banks. Now this is the major story on Daily Sun. The writer says MAN, OPS, others lament rise in inflation and FX scarcity. You'll find this on page 2 of the newspaper. Beside the headmaster, it says Fidelity Bank signs $40 million cocoa export deal with Afrexim Bank, John Vance Industries, and this would boost Nigeria's non-oil exports. You'll find this, of course, on page 25. There is a pictorial of President Bola Tinubu with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in Abuja yesterday. Below the pictorial there, we have Nigeria crawling but determined to change the narrative. Tinubu assures Nigerians. You'll find this on page 7. Beside that, you'd see if the federal government moves to facilitate speedy delivery of attack helicopters to NAF. This you find on page 5. IPOB to the federal government says remove terrorism tag on us. You'll find this on page 6. Tinubu won battle but must work hard to win the war. Mascot Uzokalu said this. You find this on page 26. The federal government and Labour meet over fuel subsidy agreement, and unions vow to shun any parley with Lalong. Okay, you find this on page 6. Court bars NLC from going on strike and protesting in Imo. This you find on page 6 as well. President Kalu, ACF, and others mourn as Ohinoi of Ebira land dies at 95. A sad situation there. You'll find this on page 7. NDLEA nabs Hong Kong, France-bound businessman at Abuja airport for ingesting cocaine and heroin. You'll find this on page 4. At the belt there, it says reps propose life imprisonment for kidnapping and hostage taking. You find this on page 6. Now, these are some of the stories on the Daily Sun this morning.
All right. Now, on the Daily Independent this morning, the lead story there talks about a fresh CBN Forex market push on settles speculators and banks. You have above the masthead, NLC to embark on strike, street protest in Imo, November 1. Serap task INEC on reforms to secure Nigerians' voting rights. Also below the pictorial, Nigeria crawling, but we are changing the narrative, Tinubu tells German Chancellor. You also have boat capsizes with 100 passengers in Taraba. Buhari lists what Nigeria would have lost in the PNID $11 billion case. Catholic priests, 4 others abducted in Taraba. Akpabio, Kalu-led delegation to brief Tinubu on IPU assembly outcome. Tinubu, Abbas, Ganduje, Amon Ohinoi of Ibra land. So these are the main stories on Daily Independent today.
Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper there. From the top of the page says, federal government seeks speedy delivery of Turkish attack helicopters. Afrexim Fidelity Bank, John Vance seal $40 million cocoa deal. Challenging the PNID fraud saved Nigerian about $15 billion. That's according to Buhari. A major story on the Punch says, Forex crisis, Labour blames the government officials and meets the federal government today. Politicians' taste for foreign good pushing Nigeria to disaster. That's according to the NLC. And Labour threatens to boycott talks with the government if minister attends. You find this on page 2 of the newspaper there. Below there, you'd see the German Chancellor visits Tinubu and gives ECOWAS about 81 million euro for security and others. At the bottom, it says importers return to parallel market as Naira rebounds. And Lagos begins demolition of Ikoyi structures near drainage. We also have the Israeli-Hamas death near 10,000 as the UN warns of civil unrest. Now, these are some of the stories on the Punch newspaper.
All right, now on the first news, you have the lead story that has a kicker. Tragedy in Taraba, over 100 passengers drown in boat mishap. Women, children among victims. And then you also have Bishop Kuka delivers first newspaper annual National Public Lecture. You have multi-Guinness World Record holder, Professor Imafidon, to deliver first newspapers, public lectures, second keynote address. Okay, so you have other stories there. 100 billion naira project, APC, PDP disagree over alleged plot by Adeleke to siphon funds, rather. Also hardship, bar along, or we will shun today's meeting with FG, says Labour. I defended Tinubu on certificate controversy until new facts emerged. Ayo Adebanjo. PNID, Nigeria will have lost $15 billion, says Buhari. These are the main stories on the first newspaper.
The Vanguard carries NLC, TUC, NECA to federal government halt fall in Naira value. Asks federal government to take urgent actions to stabilize currencies, and also threatens to compel government to prioritize rescue of Naira economy. If there is more to that, you find all this on page 5 of the newspaper there. Below there we see the pictorial of the German Chancellor and the President of Nigeria. Beside the pictorial, we have Oyo government files appeal against removal of Song. You'll find this on page 10. Tinubu, ACF, others mourn as Ohinoye of Ibera dies at 95. Now, all the major front pages of the national dailies are carrying that story. Net foreign exchange inflow falls 54% to $7.29 billion in the I think first quarter of or first half of the 2023. The monarch, Catholic priest, 4 others abducted in Zamfara and Taraba states. Varsity lecturer killed in Niger state. At the top of the newspaper there, we see the Minister of Foreign Missions roll over return date. Tinubu to German leader, we want to change weak economy narrative. There's the special report card says that the NAS, INEC and judiciary are future elections. And also talking about the Fidelity Bank boosts Nigeria's non-oil exports with the FITCC Houston. Now, these are some of the stories on the Vanguard front page.
All right. So let's take a look at this day newspaper this morning. There you have you have the lead story there. It talks about Tinubu. It says, we are set to change narrative surrounding Nigeria's economy. Reiterates with Supreme Court affirmation of his election, no more distractions. Above the masthead, 15-point agreement. NLC wants Minister of Labour excluded from today's meeting with the federal government. Insists Wednesday's protest in Imo will hold. You also have Tinubu, Atiku, Barrow, Northern Governors, Ganduje, Melai, Ajaka, others mourn Ohinoi of Ibra land. Rivers Assembly set ablaze over alleged move to impeach Governor Fubara. So these are the main stories on this day newspaper this morning.
The Blueprint major story says how I fought PNID fraud and saved Nigeria $15 billion trauma, according to Buhari. You'll find this story on page 6 and more on that. Below the masthead, it says Lagos, 20 years after avoiding rent obligation, court evicts late son's lawyer's son. There is the death of Ohinaya also, where a lot of people say they are mourning him, even Ganduje, Barrow and others. Exercise clean sweep. Army detonates 642 unexploded ordnance in Lagos. Below the pictorial there we have FUT, that's Food's female lecturer slaughtered in her Mina residence. City of Houston proclaims October 25th as FITCC Day. The boat carrying 100 passengers capsized in Taraba. And Sarab to INEC take over constitutional reform process or face legal actions. Nigerian politicians reluctant to work for genuine improvement. Now, these are some of the stories on the Blueprint newspaper.
All right. So, on the Guardian newspaper this morning, you have the lead story also that talks about why probe of 11.3 trillion naira refineries maintenance cost will end futile. You also have every energy challenges undermining Nigeria's development. Tinubu admits. You have other stories unconstitutional for politicians to be INEC rec. Oshun, APC, PDP bicker over Adeleke's 100 billion naira infrastructure agenda. The imperative of a good road infrastructure. You find that analysis there on the Guardian newspaper. Well, that's that. We'll be taking some analysis on these stories on the front pages of our newspapers, but that'll be shortly after this breather. Join us again.
Are you interested in the latest news and developments in Nigerian politics, policy, governance, and other critical national issues? Look no further than Daily Politics on Trust TV. Our panel of experts and key people in government provide in-depth analysis and commentary on the biggest stories in Nigerian politics.
And 33.3 million Nigerians are suffering from multidimensional poverty. It's a much calmer Buhari than the Buhari who was in the khaki uniform.
Naira to Naira X rate is higher anywhere in the world. The Naira is higher than dollar exchange rate. So you want to change central bank governor you're doing, you must do it fast.
Number of casualties we have had, we shouldn't have had. Security as far as Nigeria is concerned, we have wronged.
From the inner workings of government to the latest on legislation, rule of law, implementation, and democracy, we have you covered. Don't miss out on the latest political news and discussion. Tune in to Daily Politics, weekdays on Trust TV, your source for reliable and unbiased coverage of Nigerian politics.
But in a situation where you find that
necessarily tribal or regional.
All right, thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak on Trust TV, and well, a number of stories on our pages, on the front pages of our newspapers this morning. One of them, very prominent, is the expected meeting between the federal government and the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) scheduled today, and we've heard from the NLC threatening not to be part of that meeting if the Minister of Labour will be attending that meeting and talking about Simon Lalong, and so that's a major threat there. And I mean, if the Labour is not going to be meeting with the minister in charge or responsible for Labour issues, then
who are they going to meet
I mean,
with?
who are they going? I mean, he is the key representative of the federal government.
I mean, we thought they even had a good rapport, because last meeting that they had, he was at the forefront of it, telling them that they need to calm down. He would push for their demands to be met. But then all of a sudden, there is them saying, accusing him, saying that he did not, you know, he reneged on all the promises that he made. So they think that he's pushing them aside and they're not okay with him anymore, which at this point, it's not favoring Nigerians, because these people are the people that needs to hear what Nigerians, you know, they need to discuss rather what Nigerians are going through. I mean, they have been pushing this for the longest time. It hasn't been easy for Nigerians, and it keeps getting worse with the depreciation of the naira. So it's really a sad situation there. And at this point, I don't think if that is something that the government can even afford to, you know, give the NLC, considering he is the Minister of Labour. So how can that be done? That is what I'm still confused about.
Yes, and so some of the grounds between the federal government, I mean, some of the grounds that the NLC has against the Minister of Labour is that he's now siding with a faction of the NURTW. Apparently, there has been a crisis within the union, and also the decision of government to deploy police officers in the state. I think that's Imo State, where there was this fracas, and you know, they believe that the minister is now taking side with a faction of the officials of NURTW, which they feel that you know, goes against whatever that has been agreed upon, and that he should be a neutral body I mean, in this whole issue. And then also there's the issue of workers entitlements in Imo State that have not been paid, and some workers that have been sacked without going through the due process according to them. The Imo State government sacked a number of workers in the state in the name of ghost workers, and they said that, well, those are not ghost workers, they are hardworking civil servants in the state and are not ghost workers. And so they are expecting the Imo State government to reverse that decision, and that has not been done. So which is one of the conditions why, one of the issues why they say that they are going to be embarking on strike in Imo State on November 1. So these are some of the issues. I mean, we're talking about 11,000 civil servants in Imo State there.
That's quite scary. It's a quite large number.
Yes, a huge number who are said to be ghost workers. So, they said that, for instance, they said that the government has failed to address the 8-year backlog of gratuity owed to retirees, also showing a grave disregard for the rights of those who have dedicated their career in service. So that's one of the issues as well that they are putting on the table. There is also the introduction of discriminatory pay practices and the imposition of apartheid-like policies, that in their own words, apartheid-like policies in determining monthly payments in an affront to to fair labor practices. So these are some of the issues that Labour is putting. One other issue is the wanton destruction of the NLC State Secretariat, what they consider a blatant attack on the rights of workers and a violation of the sanctity of their representative body, talking about Imo State now. So these are some of the issues that have been raised by Labour, and we hope that these issues will be addressed so that we don't go back to square one.
Indeed,
if you like.
it seems like we're stuck in one particular place. I mean, let's not even forget, in connection to that, the major story on the Daily Trust newspaper saying that the federal government are yet to pay about 79.3 billion naira peculiar allowance. That's 7 months after the promise. And the Jews are also given ultimatum, and it ends tomorrow. And let's not forget, the NLC alleges the lack of capacity to manage wages also. So there's a lot of things that needs to be discussed in this meeting, and it's actually affecting the Nigerian citizens. People are losing hope in both the NLC as a body and also the federal government as the head of the country. So there's a lot of things, also saying supplementary budget stalls payments in agencies, and finance ministry also mom. So a lot of things, situation on this matter. We are hopeful. We have to wait and see how the outcome of this meeting.
And you could just imagine that the current economic hardship is, I would say, mainly responsible for these reactions that we're seeing from Labour. I mean, these are tough times. Today we talk about the dollar at 1,250 naira, you know, at the parallel market. So definitely these are things that put pressure on people, and so it's not a good time for any government to withhold, you know, workers entitlements and pay and so on. People will fight to get what is due to them, you know, and so on. And the only way to do that is through the unions, the Labour, you know, Congress and so on. And we're also waiting to see the implementation of some of the things that have been agreed upon. Perhaps by the end of the meeting today, if Labour do attend, we get to hear where we are, where things stand. The last time they inaugurated the National Minimum Wage Committee, so we are expecting to hear what the deliberations are with regards to that. The president in his speech made promises about 35,000 naira
starting
increment,
September,
which I believe that has started already as part of efforts to cushion the impact.
Has it, Joe? Have you heard any, you know, talk with any government worker saying that yes, we have received the 35,000?
Well, you know, the thing with workers is
we haven't heard it.
I haven't heard anything, but you know, the thing with workers is that if everything is fine, if the payments are made, no one says anything. You know, it is when the payments are not made, that's when you hear things. So I assume that,
no, let's wait.
I mean,
until,
I'm not a civil servant,
let's
so
wait until
I don't know.
the new month comes, then we'll hear from them, because I'm very sure if they haven't paid, there would be you know, a pushback from the civil servant, because there's a lot. From the people that I know around me, I don't think anybody has received that 35,000 naira yet. But a lot is, you know, we all know how this meeting can take, how long it can take. I mean, the last time they spent almost the whole day, and people were at the peak of their phones and televisions, you know, trying to get a grip of any information. So we're hopeful that, of course, this one would yield better results than the previous one. Now, away from that, Ayuba, I want to talk about this 11.3 trillion naira probe, you know, that about the refineries maintenance that the federal government, the National Assembly, are saying that they need to tackle. What is your take on that? Because for me, I feel like well, someone here is saying that it will end futile, you know, it's not going to end any yield result. But there is also a perception of, you know, some Nigerians saying these people representing us, we're talking about the National Assembly leadership, these people representing us are already saying that they need new SUVs. And right now you're worried that you want to go back and check on how much money, you know, it's been spent to take care of refineries, that even though Nigerians have asked that question for the longest time, but they feel like you need to hold yourself accountable first before you can hold other people accountable. So,
well, you know, Sumaya, I've actually lost count on how many times I've heard that, oh, there's going to be probe on this, there's going to be probe on that, specifically even as regards the oil and gas sector in the NNPC in this case. I mean, I've lost count on how many times we'll hear such pronouncements. But it's now, seem like each time such a pronouncement is made about probe and investigation, it's now beginning to seem like a smokescreen, like there's something underneath that we are not really seeing. Yes, it's good if really there's intent, and that intent is altruistic to make sure that that investigation is done, and if where there needs to be prosecution, people should be charged and prosecuted. But the fact is that we have not seen a demonstration of will over time. And so Nigerians will be skeptical each time you talk about probe and so on. Of course, there are the things that we love to hear. We love to see them happen as Nigerians, because yes, people have said that there's a lot of corruption in the oil and gas sector, and specifically as regards the issue of refineries in Nigeria and the several efforts and the allocations that have been made with regards to, maintaining those refineries, even though without any,
it's not working,
any results and so on. So yes, it's something to investigate, it's something to interrogate, and I hope that happens. And I hope that we'll not see another episode of off your mic scenario, like we've seen in the
and when
National
they start
Assembly
pushing,
some time
someone comes
ago.
out and say it's witch hunting and all that, so the back and forth, and then everything goes
so
quiet.
I'm hopeful that if this investigation is going to go on, then we should see it done completely without any
openly
reservations, and it should happen holistically and so on. So yeah, I'm all in for it. Another story that is of concern here is the tragic story about the death of a number of passengers in a boat that were traveling from a market somewhere in Taraba State back home, and then the boat capsized. We understand the boat was conveying about 100 people, and so on. But something shocking that I found out is that of all these 100 people that were in that boat, none was wearing a life jacket, according to the reports that we're getting. Not a single person was wearing a life jacket. And I can imagine how people were cramped into the boat. It's probably even smaller.
Yeah, how big of a boat do we have to hold 100 passengers?
Than what the number the number of people in that boat. So this is one of the things that have been happening over time. It's not the first time that we've heard this kind of story. I mean, especially along the Kebbi Niger axis, we've had several stories of boat capsizing and so on. But yet, when people die, nothing happens. You wonder what's the role of the inland waterways. NIWA now, is it Nigerian Inland Waterways Authority? What exactly are they supposed to be doing? Who is monitoring people using boat, as means of transportation in Nigeria? I know that in places like Lagos, there seems to be some kind of advancement. The state government is interested, and it has been working. You could see that the authorities are working. You hardly would see, because I had the privilege of traveling, by boat in Lagos, through the waters. And, because of the transport issue in Lagos, water transport is critical.
Yes, the government invested in it.
The government is investing in that regard. So yes, you see people carrying life jackets each time that will happen. But I'm not sure about the other parts
we're still in the
of the country.
same spot.
And I think that it's an area where we need to pay attention to, where we need to keep a close watch on that, to ensure that people don't just risk their lives unnecessarily. And if it means government investing in that regard, why not?
Why not? I mean, Ayuba, we had this conversation, I think, 2 months ago, when there was, a consistent, boat mishap happening in Niger, Adamawa, and other riverine area due to the flood and all that. And one of the things where we spoke about one of the major stakeholders, we spoke with one of the major stakeholders in the waterways, and we talked about what are the problems. Now, these are everything that we already know. We know the problems, but the problem is, what is the solution? Why won't we push into getting the proper solution? Because the main complaint was these boats are old, and they normally take more than they can handle. So many people are loaded in a boat that is not strong, and majority of the people cannot swim. I mean, the divers, even the local divers, and we don't find at least say 10 to 15 local divers in that same boat with people. That way, in case of any situation, they can help. And also, there is no life jacket. The life jackets, even if there is in some places, it's outnumbered. Like, the people outnumber the life jackets available. So for people that cannot swim, there are no enough divers in the boats with them, and there are no life jackets. And anything can happen. The water wave could just come and just turn the boat. So it's like we are still reliving the same thing over and over again, and the government are not doing anything. The bodies that are supposed to be in charge of these things are not doing anything. So we keep losing numbers of people. And
for the people, I would just like to say, I mean, I can understand that, especially in these days where we've seen that transport fare is on the rise, is on the increase. Many people are unable to actually pay for transport fares by road, and so perhaps they would consider moving, on the waterways as an alternative, if it's cheaper, which I believe it will be, but then at the risk of your life, is it worth it? It's something to consider. Is it worth it? You have to, your safety first, is very paramount, your safety first.
But some of them don't even have, they don't have, bridges.
Means.
In order, yes, they don't have means to even go. It's only that way. The waterways is the only way to reach their destination. It's such a sad situation.
Yeah. So, and that's why government need to be invested in this area. Indeed. Because we can't have people dying in such a manner, every now and then, time and again.
Situation.
And then
all right, of course, due to time constraint, we have to put a stop, wrap the show of Daybreak on Trust Television. We hope that you, of course, were entertained, you enjoyed our show. We hope we carried you along on the program this morning.